Hi, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for waking up bright and early for this. We appreciate it. Well, let's get started. First of all, Henk, I just want to say welcome back. Technically, I know you live in New York, but you're also a New Yorker, and a lot of people don't realize that.
I'm definitely a New Yorker. I went to junior high school and high school in New York, and I've got the New York attitude wherever I go.
And which high school?
Stuyvesant. How many of you are from New York City? Oh, nice. Okay. Yes, I went to Stuyvesant High School.
Congratulations. And Maya, thank you so much for flying in from all the way from Hawaii.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Great. Well, so few games have stood the test of time quite like Tetris. What started off as a seemingly simple puzzle game in Soviet Russia has grown into a global phenomenon that has captivated players for 4 decades. At its core, Tetris is the quintessential American entrepreneurship story, one of perseverance, innovation, and cross-cultural connection. At a time when isolationism and division dominate our national rhetoric, we need stories. Stories like Tetris now more than ever. And this was actually very well timed because Henk's autobiography just came out 2 days ago on April Fool's Day. So it really is an honor to explore this journey with Henk Rogers, who saw Tetris's potential and risked everything to bring it to the world, and Maya Rogers, who now leads Tetris into its next chapter. We will dive into the game's enduring impact, from its role in mental health research to entrepreneurship and sustainability. And we're actually going to get started with a few questions for Henk. So Henk, when you first saw Tetris, you had already made a big impact in Japanese gaming, right, by bringing the country's first RPG game. So what about Tetris made it so special?
You know, when I first saw Tetris at the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas, I was surprised that a game that looked so simple could get me to stand in line over and over. In other words, my job at the time, I was a publisher in Japan, was to find games that I could bring to Japan and publish in Japan. And out of the hundreds of games, I would have, each game I would get a couple of minutes. But Tetris just brought me back and brought me back. I stood in line for the 4th time, said, what am I doing standing in line? I'm actually here hooked on this game. And the fact that it was so simple, that it was, geometry instead of little characters, was all the more, reason for me to be interested in it. It just looked so simple, and it was so magnetic, so I fell in love with it.
And we appreciate you for doing that, because we have all fallen in love with it. So you traveled to Moscow during an intense and complex time in US-Russia relations. What was that experience really like on the ground?
If you can imagine going to North Korea and sneaking into a ministry of some kind, you have a little bit of a feeling of what I felt like. Of course, or Soviet Union was experiencing perestroika and glasnost at the time, so the ice was melting a little bit. So, whereas if I had done that maybe 5 years earlier, walked into a ministry, I might not have walked out. I don't know. I have no idea what would have happened to me. But I'm lucky enough to come there at just the right time, so that when I walked in, breaking all the rules, I was supposed to be invited, I was supposed to have a visa, I was supposed to have credentials, and have any of that. I just walked in and stood in the lobby until somebody spoke to me. And yeah, you could say that was ballsy, but it's also a little bit stupid. I don't know, but I got away with it, so here I am.
And I know you actually talk a lot about that in the book, but it was also a big part of the movie. I'm curious, Henk, earlier this morning we talked a little bit about potential discrepancies between the movie and the book. At least the Russia piece, like how accurate would you say the movie was?
But maybe not everybody knows that. So a couple of years ago, we did a movie with Apple TV Plus, starring Taron Egerton, who played Henk Rogers. And yeah, so it was basically the story behind how Henk went to the Soviet Union, and befriended Alexei and was the crazy entrepreneur that he was. And so, yeah, thank you for clapping. If you haven't watched it, it came out to be a good movie.
It's really
How many of you seen the movie? Oh, wow.
a lot of you.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, so the story behind the movie is, Maya got the deal, and I ended up talking to the writer, and we looked at the script, and I said, this is like not what happened. There was so much Hollywood in it, and it was just terrifying. I thought this is going to be a terrible movie. And Alexei, the guy who created Tetris, and I worked on the script. They would let us only touch the parts that were like, make the Soviet Union real and make the KGB real and all of those things. So we did that. The car chase and me sleeping with the interpreter, all of that, they added that. And so I decided I needed to set the record straight. And this was all going on during the pandemic. And so I decided I'm going to write what actually happened, and I did. And somebody looked at it and said, that's almost a book. What you need is about 3 times more content. So I wrote the before and after story. So I ended up being a book about my entire game career.
And Maya has been leading Tetris as CEO since 2014. So Henk, how did you know it was the right time to pass the torch? And since stepping back, what have you been working on besides the book?
Right. So I knew it was time to step out when Maya said, I got this. That's basically it. It wasn't like I was looking for a way to get out of the business. But, you got to do the right thing at the right time. And so Maya was ready, as ready was ever going to be. And I said, okay, this is a good time for me to step out. So I stepped out, well, what am I doing now? I'm fighting climate change. I have an organization called the Blue Planet Foundation, another organization called the Blue Planet Alliance. We put Hawaii on track to go 100% renewable energy by 2045. We were the first state in the country to do so. And since then, 15 other states have the same legislation that says that they have to go 100% renewable for energy for electricity by whatever the date is. And that includes California, Illinois, New York. And so we've already got 51% of the people, of the population of the United States that live in a state where they're going to go 100% renewable energy. Going 100% renewable energy is the biggest source of carbon dioxide, and so the biggest problem for climate change. And we're doing the same thing now outside the United States, because in the US, we're only 4.3% of the people in the world. So we're starting with island countries. We've already brought 26 island countries to Hawaii and show them what we did in Hawaii. And when we bring a country, one from the government, one person from the utility, one from the regulatory agency, and one from the community. So 4 people come, and they learn how we did the transition from it's impossible to, of course, we're doing this. It's not just about creating the legislation, it's also incentivizing the utility to actually make the change. So we passed another law that says that the utility can make more money by switching to renewables. They went from being our worst enemy to our best friend. So everybody used to say it's impossible, and now everybody is saying, of course we're doing this. And this is the change that we need to see in the world, in the entire world, and then we will fix climate change.
So as you can see, he hasn't really retired. He left the video games business, and now he's out there trying to save the world.
Henk, I think you just like working on hard things, but we thank you for that.
Hard, the word hard is relative, and I think at the end of the day, when we all look back on how we fixed climate change, then we will say, it wasn't really that hard. What was everybody belly aching about? Renewable energy is already cheaper and abundant, and we've got sources of energy that are almost untapped, like geothermal. And so these things are coming down the pike. New technology is coming all the time. We can do it with the technology we have today. And just think that in 5 years, what's the technology going to look like? So I believe that our technology is going to outpace the problems that we're creating with our old technology.
So Henk, I have one more question for you before turning it over to Maya. What made now the right time to share your story? Like, what inspired you to kind of bring your autobiography to the world?
I want people to understand. First of all, the story is a rags to riches story. I mean, when I was in high school, I got 50 cents per day to have lunch, and that was it. I mean, I had absolutely no money. I went to public school. And so the story really is like, what can somebody do that starts from nothing and ends up doing something? And that's the second part of the story is, now that I've got something, I've done something, I don't want to just like retire and play golf the rest of my life. You know, that's what a lot of people who've made it do. They were kind of expecting me to do that. And I said, no.
You do play pickleball.
I play pickleball, I play table tennis. I do these things for exercise. But golf, I used to play golf for business, but it just takes too much time. I just don't have that kind of time anymore. It's weird. I don't have that kind of time anymore. But I really want people who have made it somehow, have made money, and have done their exit, to use that money. Don't die with your money. Use the money, use your talent to do something, to fix something in the world. And it doesn't have to be my thing. It can be anything. Go back, remember what you did in high school, what pissed you off in high school. Go and fix that. Use your money and your talent. And, don't leave it for your kids because they'll be spoiled. She's making her own. When I asked her when she was 15, so what do you want to be when you grow up? And she said, I don't know, but I want to make more money than you. So I said, you're on. And she's on. She's totally doing it. And she'll feel much better about making more money than me giving her a bunch of money. So she doesn't need my money. I'm gonna go skiing. I'm spending my kids' inheritance.
That's actually a great segue to Maya, who is now the CEO of Tetris. So Maya, you are leading one of the most beloved and iconic brands in gaming. How do you balance honoring Tetris's legacy while also keeping the technology fresh for new generations?
I mean, I think I've learned so much from my father running the business and also realized that I could do what he's doing. So going back to we had this conversation about you retiring, and then a year went by, and then I looked at him and said, hey, remember a year ago you said you were going to retire? And he's like, yes, let's do it. And he retired a month later. So I learned
from the
Tetris business. But I learned so much from what was already there, which was to make sure that the reason why Tetris has been, we actually also just celebrated our 40th anniversary since its creation last year. And so one of the reasons why Tetris has been around for so long was that we make sure that the game is available on every platform. Wherever games are made, this is where our players, the first thing they do is they look for Tetris. So we want to make sure that we're there. And so that's one of the things that's kept the brand going. But really, it also goes back to the fact that Alexei Pajitnov created the perfect game. It's this human need to want to create order out of chaos, and it's that when you play it, when you've played it, everyone has this connection to Tetris, and this is why it's been around for so long, and it will continue to be around for so long. So we want to make sure that wherever games are played, that we're connecting with our audience. And now, it's not just in video games, but we've now expanded into merchandise. We're doing entertainment, like the movie, Henk's book. So, it's in today's world, right? When you engage with the brand, it's not just one way to engage with the brand, but it's wherever you are. And so that's kind of what we try to do.
So Jamie from your team has actually told me some of your metrics and also the demographies of who plays your game. First of all, I just want to say I grew up playing Tetris, and that was over 20 years ago. And
how many of you played Tetris?
Yep. Now everybody can play Tetris. So, Maya, I'd love for you to even dive deeper into who plays Tetris today.
I mean, it's, again, right, it's like everyone who plays games, and so if you ask different generations, I'm sure in the audience, like, I grew up playing on the Game Boy, that was my game, but maybe somebody only played on mobile phones. So because of the ability of the game being everywhere, like today we have a game called Tetris 99 on the Switch, and it's younger generations playing, and they're competing against 99 other players. You know, so that's a whole thing that's going. We just launched another game called Tetris Forever, which is a documentary style game. So you get to play like the older games that were released in the 80s and 90s. And then you'll get to see some of us talking in between. And that was just nominated for a BAFTA. So it's really, all generations still play. And again, it's like, how do we get our games to the audience, in front of the audience?
And I know it's very popular with women as well.
Yes. So, you know, a lot of casual games are heavily like 70% to 30% women, right? If you look at like some of the casual games on mobile phones. But Tetris is one of those games that are almost equal. So, you know, I think there's the relaxing part of playing, but there's also the competitive part of playing. So it really is the one game that really brings people together. And I think going back to like what's made Tetris kind of so popular to this day, it doesn't require language, right? It's the one game. There's no language, there's no culture, anybody can play, and it's like really the first game that brought people together. You know, it was the first game that maybe on the Nintendo console, you know, kids were playing with their moms. You know, it's that kind of game. So I think that has contributed to the evergreenness of Tetris.
Yeah, so Tetris is the first game that was played in large numbers by women. Before Tetris, it was all games for little boys, you know, coming of age or, you know, that trying to beat something. But Tetris is not about like killing anything or shooting or any of that kind of stuff. It's all about construction. It's building something. And that's a whole different thing. And if you look at the world, we're more about building things than destroying things. I mean, the fact that all these cities are wonderful today, New York, for example, is a testament to that. We've actually put things like World War II behind us. I'm not saying that we're down to zero conflict, but by and large, we're living in a very great period of peace. And so that, I think, is expressed in Tetris because it is a construction game.
And this is a nice segue to talk about beyond the game, like the impact of the Tetris platform. I know that the game has done a lot to promote mental health and inclusion. I would love to hear more about these initiatives.
Yeah, so this is very exciting. There's a doctor named Dr. Emily Holmes. She started a study over 20 years ago now, an independent study, and it has proven that Tetris helps with PTSD. Like, it's been scientifically proven. So for us, it's a passion project that we're just kind of getting off the ground. But you know, if in the world of video games where there's so much negativity and people just assume like video games are bad for you, well, what if we can help people, you know? And so we're very passionate. We've done research with nurses in the hospitals during COVID, for example, that when they play every day, that they actually are able to manage their stress and their PTSD. And so I think moving forward, right, how can we help the world in a way that is not negative is something that we're very passionate about. And I know, Henk, you have a lot to say about this subject. You've been talking about it for years.
Yeah, so we figured out that if you can have someone play Tetris right after the trauma, and then what it does is it completely reduces the intensity and the frequency of flashbacks. And this is flashbacks are the result of PTSD, or it's the definition of PTSD. And more recently, we've actually gotten to the point now where we can actually later on, way after the trauma, so you can take an old trauma and you can kind of bring it back a little bit and then have people play Tetris. What it does is it disconnects the physical trauma symptoms from the memory of the trauma. And so after the treatment, people can talk about their trauma like it happened to somebody else. And that is a huge, huge thing. Because in this world, there are so many people that have trauma from life. Life brings you trauma, and you could think they're small things, but they affect people in a very deep way. And so if we can solve trauma or reduce trauma, cut it in half in the world, that would be a great thing. And trauma is cumulative. So if you experience a trauma and then another trauma and another, it brings you up to the point where you have a breakdown. That's how trauma works. So what you want to do is you want to solve these traumas before they add up and become a breakdown. And I think we can do this.
Absolutely. And at J2 Ventures, we invest in technology companies that scale with the help of government. I know, Maya, you've met some of my portfolio companies. This is actually a very full circle moment for me because I grew up playing Tetris, inspired me to study computer science, and now I'm a venture capitalist where I invest in deep tech related to climate, but also gaming. And so at my venture fund, we actually do a lot with the US military and with the Department of Defense. And we actually work with the Air Force Gaming Initiative on some of the projects that you discussed. And the exciting thing is, I think with this research study, right, the goal is to actually demonstrate efficacy so it gets incorporated into the care model for patients with PTSD and trauma. So thank you so much for the work that you guys are doing beyond the game. So last question for you, Maya. You're also the founding partner of Blue Startups, Hawaii's first venture accelerator. Can you share more about the mission behind it and how it's shaping the tech ecosystem?
Yes. So the reason why, most of you don't know this, but we're based in Honolulu, the Tetris business. And the reason why we're there is because we have roots in Hawaii, right? Our family is there. And so we were lucky enough that my father decided to move the business to Hawaii back in 20 years ago, maybe?
Yeah, 2002.
2002. And there was no reason for us to be in Hawaii except for the family roots. And how can we build this place of this island where, we have this thing called the brain drain where everybody leaves Hawaii, they go to the mainland, the continental US, to get educated, and there's nothing for them to come back to because there's just no jobs. So we had started this accelerator called Blue Startups, and we're celebrating our 11th year to date. We've invested in 131 companies, and half the companies are from Hawaii. So again, with the mindset of helping the ecosystem, and it's scalable technology companies so that we can build it in Hawaii. And maybe they move off, that's fine. But the fact that we're building this ecosystem, and half the other companies are from around the world, and so it's a mixture of companies that are able to help each other. And it's similar to like the Y Combinator model, Techstars model, where we go through a cohort, and there's 10 to 15 companies that go through each program, and they learn from each other, and they grow the business. So I don't know if that answered your question, but we're very excited. Christine is coming to our conference next in a couple of weeks called East Meets West, and it's a conference again of connecting entrepreneurs from the East and the West, and we converge in Hawaii to talk tech and startups.
I know it's meta to talk about another conference at a conference, but it is a great conference. Registrations are so open, and we're hosting a dinner, so look up East Meets West conference as well. It's great, and I'm excited to see you guys in Hawaii in 2 weeks.
And it's sort of a full circle moment too when you had asked us to come on this panel and smart cities and what we've done, through Blue Startups and Blue Ventures and building the ecosystem of Hawaii, and also what Henk's doing with building sustainable cities and countries in the world. It's all a full circle moment for me too.
So I think all of us in the room, I think we're all very, or at least me personally, we're very, very committed in making this a New York Times bestseller. So let's make this happen. Go to your local bookstore, or not.
Next Wednesday, that's April 9th, we have an event at Barnes & Noble on 5th Avenue. That's near 5th Avenue and 46th Street. And I will be signing books at Barnes & Noble. There's a limited number of people we have a limited number of books. So you need to go and sign it. You need to go to Barnes & Noble's website and basically sign up. The cost of the book is $38. All of the proceeds from the books will go to the Blue Planet Alliance to fix climate change. So it's all for a good cause.
And it's available on pretty much every outlet that sells books, right?
It'll be everywhere. I mean, it's on Amazon today, but it's much more fun to come and meet me again, and I'll sign your book at Barnes & Noble.
We will see you there, Henk. Well, so to wrap up, what I want to say, and hopefully this is all clear to you in the audience, Tetris is so much more than a game. It's a global connector, it's a force for good, and it continues to inspire and evolve. Thank you, Henk and Maya, for showing us the power of play, how it can bring us all together and connect generations. Thanks for spending your morning with us.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.